This video is sponsored by Invincible, guarding the globe.
This is the worst day of my life.
The worst day of your life so far.
It's finally happened. We got Conquest. Months, no, years of people refusing to shut up about this fight. And now that it's finally here, I get it. This was one hell of a season finale. Even as we were clearly getting ready for crazier stuff down the road, they definitely saved the budget for this, and honestly, worth it. Loved ones were hurt, friends were mourned, and I pray that some of those buildings were empty. While we're waiting on the answer to that question, let's take the time to talk about my overall thoughts on season 3, and I take a couple L's, and how the finale had one weird thing that I was a little bit surprised by. But before that, I do think we have to acknowledge that this is gonna be our last bit of Invincible content for a while. Who knows how long till season 3 drops, so if you're looking for more Invincible in your life, well, I've got something special for you today. Get ready to dive into the thrilling world of Invincible, guarding the globe, the video game that lets you team up with your favorite Invincible superheroes. This game brings the action of the beloved series right to your fingertips, allowing you to join forces with the non-broke Guardians as you face off against relentless villains and protect the globe from imminent threats. Whether it's strategic combat or jaw-dropping special moves, every battle is a chance to showcase your skills. Manage your team of heroes, devise powerful combos, and unlock special abilities that can turn the tide in intense boss battles. Test your skills in live events like Cecil's Nightmare, aka Mark. Plural. Guarding the Globe is one of the top idle action games out right now, so you guys need to try it and use my link, as with it you'll get Omni-Man and the other son right off the bat. So are you ready to jump into the action? Use a link down in the description or this QR code somewhere up here to get all the perks and more. This is one adventure you don't want to miss out on. Whether you're a diehard fan to the comics or new to the universe, this game has something for everyone. And it'll hold you over till we eventually get that season 4. So let's team up and guard the globe together. See y'all in game. Now to clear the air, I had some takes in my last Invincible review, and yeah, I was wrong. My sleep-deprived ass thought I was cooking, but all I got was cooked. Oliver being there had a reason. Mark's arc isn't that rough, and any point I did have could have been phrased a whole lot better. Might be, now that we have the complete season and I haven't been awake for 48 hours, we can get into my thoughts on season 3 as a whole and how it just handled all of its characters. Which yeah, it's pretty good. If season 2 was all about dealing with the fallout of Omni-Man's actions and how one picks up the pieces after your life was shattered, well, season 3 ups the ante by dragging us even deeper into the moral grayness of the superhero world. Bring up the question of what does it mean to be good in a complicated world, and at what point does a hero sticking to his principles do more harm than good? This is pretty much the season of ethical questions, with the characters trapped inside them trying to find a way out without compromising who they are. I think this season was at its best when it was focused on the villains, as yeah, they're either fun, they're tragic, or they're Machine Head, who is a ball.
I know where your family lives.
But this season does do a great job making us understand who they are. They're not just flat villains who show up to get beaten up, but they're people. They have thoughts, feelings, and just full lives. And when we dig into them and how they just keep doubling down on bad decisions, this is where I am the most invested, which is why I think Powerplex might be my favorite episode of the season, as we watch a man be blinded by grief and it costs him everything. And while we're here, I also want to say that yeah, the violence in this season is very fun. Like, I grew up on Hellsing and Akira. I am used to people getting maimed, but I think the thing that Invincible does so well is just the creativity of it all. Invincible at times is on some Mortal Kombat shit. Multi-Paul breaking out of his jail cell by crushing his clone bodies till the thing burst was metal as hell. And I think Invincible's ability to keep grossing me out after I've been just so desensitized, well, that is quite the feat. But again, the real heart and soul of this show is its characters, so let's just burn through all of them, and we gotta start with my favorite, Debbie. Debbie is one of the MVPs of this show. I think her storylines are always great. Yes, we have all this superhero heroics going on. Yes, she'll never have like the crazy kills, but the writing for her is so filled with nuance. What she's going through is so complicated and emotional that whenever we get into her stuff, I am always seated. Whether it's figuring out Nolan did what he did or grappling with life after hearing him call her a pet, some of the best storytelling in Invincible is right here with her, making the fact that she's just kinda chilling this season a bit of a surprise. Debbie still has some great moments like her talk with Oliver, showing just how the reason Mark didn't flip in this universe is because he inherited her spirit and sense of right and wrong. Without her, yeah, he would probably have joined his dad. And she's trying to bring that same energy to Oliver, who seems to be not as agreeable. But this season, she didn't get a whole lot to do. Her kids are truly growing up, and she's just trying to keep living her own life on top of being a mom. Though I do love how the safest place for her during the Invincible War was just her boyfriend's place, as none of the Marks knew or gave a fuck enough about Paul to figure out where he lives. Also, while we're talking about a love interest named Paul, I do think he is a decent addition to the cast, as he's just a guy. He has no idea how to relate to these super people, but he wants to be there for Debbie and hasn't snitched yet, so he's kinda alright in my book. The only thing about him that truly interests me is just, I wanna see how awkward his and Nolan's meeting is gonna be, as Nolan can't say a damn thing about her moving on given his life choices, but that's the limit of my expectations. He is here, doing his best, and Debbie's hanging out with him and telling Oliver to be safe. Mama isn't ready for an empty nest, and I can see that she's also joined in on the familial guilt complex in this household. But as far as romantic relationships go, Invincible has never been the best. Until this season where they knocked it out of the park. Now, if I'm gonna be honest, till this season, I never actually cared about Shrinking Rae. She was the least developed member of the Guardians, and I couldn't off the top of my head remember a single conversation she had with another member of the team. Duplicate, at the very least, had a bit of intrigue like, oh, I die a lot and I feel every single one. Well, that and she was banging Abraham Lincoln, so I was pretty surprised that her budding relationship with Rex ended up being one of the highlights for me. They justified the initial, like, oh yeah, they're really close this season by saying like, oh yeah, they bonded over the whole Lizard League thing. And from there, they just keep growing closer and closer, having cute scenes, dinners, till they realize they want different things in life, and that just caused them to stay together, but Rae quits. And Rex he's Rex. He doesn't have a secret identity, he is just a hero. And then he dies. Now, if I'm being honest, I do think that the main reason the show cooked up this romance was to just remind us how much we love Rex. He's grown from a douche to a fan favorite, but on the whole, I think this subplot is here so that, oh yeah, we love Rex, he's so great, he's changed so much, and oh, the tragedy of his life getting cut short just as he was figuring it all out. That definitely seems like the narrative calculus I went to, like, okay, what are we gonna do with Rex to make him, like, give him screen time before we kill him? Honestly, it works, so I'm not too mad. But that does lead to the one weird thing I had about this whole finale, in that for as much time as we spent with this subplot, with Rex's death, I thought we would have lingered more just in the funeral. The funeral scene is touching, it is a good goodbye, but like a lot of funerals, it's more about like the people he left behind and how they deal with his death, versus twisting the emotional knife and getting us to like care even more that he's gone, which is my real actual thing with this scene, where I was slightly disappointed that Rae's presence in the funeral is restricted to just crying from a distance. Like, the show did such a good job making us care. I thought we would get a little bit more, though they might be saving something for just season 4, and given how Rae dating Rex and being alive is wholly original to the show, who knows what could happen next. But seeing as the story loves deconstructing superhero tropes and... yeah, she's pregnant. Probably like someone else will be if all of her rubbers start melting like Mark's clothes. Now, I will do a full video breakdown of why I find Mark and Eve dulled together. Before we get into that, I'm not gonna let the fact that Robot jacked Rex's name go unnoted. I kinda guessed this would happen since we saw an older robot who Eve called Rex, but boy, seeing it happen, oh my god. You can see how a robot would do this. Living his entire life in a jar has left him a bit stunted socially and emotionally, but the optics of him stealing Rex's DNA to make his clone body because Monster Girl found Rex attractive, that is something that the show has never really unpacked. But Robot taking the name, like, wow. After all the red villain flags Robot has been throwing up over just all these seasons, if he gets mud on Rex's good name, we will need to have words. Let's pray he doesn't take Monster Girl hypothetically breaking up with him that hard. Okay, now to sum up Eve and her relationship with Mark, which I think was handled well enough. We all knew this was where the show was gonna go since Eve failed to lock lips with him in episode 3, but Eve as a character this season has been Mark's rock. This man would kill for her and would let other people die on the off chance she gets hurt. But that said, I do kind of wish Eve got her own storyline instead of just having everything folded into Mark's this season, especially when it uses her getting mained to motivate Mark. Like, she gets one combo with her parents in episode 3 and that's about it. The story also felt like it was working overtime to prove how these two are soulmates and perfect for each other, so that we'll better buy into the decision that they would make in the last 2 episodes. It works, but every scene Eve has this season is just tied back to how she and Mark are dating now, when previously she always had something of her own going on, though since she just released her god mode and her powers seem to be tweaking, she'll have plenty on her plate soon enough, and I'll take anything over her god-awful parents. But speaking of god-awful, I really liked Oliver in this season. Hate that he killed my other favorite characters, but as someone who had to suffer through so many sidekick or tag-along kid character types, Oliver he ended up being a good addition to the cast, and for that I am thankful. He occupies the space of having the powers of a god, but the slightly underdeveloped brain of a child, and just a fully different worldview from all these other, well, humans. He is at first excited to be a hero, to keep helping, but he also has a very cut and dry view of the world, so he was immediately okay with the idea of killing bad guys. Which brings up the question of when, if at all, heroes should kill. This is something that I'm fully sick of in Batman stories, but here, I think it actually brings out some of the best writing that the show has to offer. It leans into humanizing the villains, showing the life that Mark or Oliver could be taking if they decide, okay, this person's too much trouble, let's just end it. When really, some people are just in bad situations and can't get a lucky break, while others, yeah, bigger threat, or in one case, yeah, they really are just that evil. Now, I do want to say, I think it's really funny to listen to Mark's speech of oh, Oliver, you were right, and to have him drop oh yeah, about killing the Maulers, and to then realize that the Maulers don't have any confirmed kills that aren't each other. For real, the one guy they gave a concussion to could still be alive. The electric gun paralyzes the normies, maybe. So the only people we've seen them kill on screen is just one another. It's not for a lack of trying, but just funny to realize. Really, again though, I did enjoy Oliver this season. The rest of the cast tries to teach me okay, no, this is the right way to do things, but then they have to start justifying their own worldview, and these were just some of the best scenes in the season. Not to mention they tried to brand himself as Kid Omni-Man, which got one of the biggest laughs out of me. Though I wonder if in the future he might start acting like dear old dad at his worst, as yeah, he was nearly killed by Conquest, being nearly ripped in half. And given how Oliver can remember every single moment of his life perfectly, that is a horrific thing to just have with you always. So if that's used as fuel to make him even more ruthless and more pragmatic, we could be in for a treat. Especially if Nolan, after all of his time in space hanging out with Alan, comes back and is a better person and finds out that his sons have just been menaces. Him having to be the one to then preach peace would be an interesting role reversal. Though speaking of role reversals and people who've made mistakes, Cecil.
Donald. We can be the good guys or the guys who save the world.
My only complaint about Cecil is that we didn't get more of him. Cecil has always been a wonderful take on the government handler characters we see across comics. Be it Nick Fury, his son, or Amanda Waller, the presence of someone whose job it is to manage superhero affairs has always been an interesting, morally nebulous concept. Cecil has always been a character that you feel like you can expect anything from, being kind and empathetic one moment to cold-blooded the next. His backstory episode really cements him and his ethos, that he genuinely wants to save the world and minimize human casualties, but he's also willing to do anything to achieve his goals. Mark may still hate him, but right now, Mark is way closer to Cecil's way of thinking than he was at the start of the season. And he's also seen just how badly Earth needs these anti-Viltrumite defenses. Like these Reanimen made out of the other Marks, those things are going to be cracked. If they make humans super durable to take a couple punches from a Viltrumite, having Viltrumite corpses, they will be a threat. But however, I don't think we can keep talking about Cecil without talking about how, yes, the man is cold and calculated, but at the end of the day, he is also very human. And that's another thing that I like about him, that he makes mistakes, that he overplays his hand, even when there might have been better alternative options, like busting out the Reanimen and the implant at the first sign of Mark getting heated, costing him the trust of the most powerful being on the planet and leaving leaving the world more vulnerable as a result. By the finale, he and Mark seem to be settling into some kind of working relationship. He may not be on the Guardians, but Mark seems to be slightly cooling off after everything that's happened. Not to mention, Mark's willingness to kill may lead to him turning on Cecil again once he finds out about how Cecil lied to him and Conquest is still alive. Which, let's be honest, Cecil is right about there needing to be countermeasures against Mark. He's right that sometimes you have to put your morals aside in a world where children can wipe out the human race. But I think Cecil keeping Conquest alive might be the thing that really blows up in his face. That his attempt to be prepared might lead to everyone getting fucked. Yes, Conquest might have a lot of intel on the Viltrum Empire, but given how twisted we've already seen his personality to be, the odds of Cecil giving anything are pretty low, especially when stacked against the chances of him breaking free. If Nolan can wipe out the planet, Conquest can do it just as easily, leaving Cecil holding the bag on one of the biggest fumbles in the series. And Mark would never forgive him for this. That he'll use anything and anyone if it means saving the world, with us never knowing just how deep the rabbit hole goes. His old boss was willing to use mind control on former villains to use them as tools. It's fully possible that he did the same thing to his villains, leaving us ever so in the dark about Cecil's methods, which is just how I like him. Okay, let's talk about the finale, aka my personal opinion is that season 2/3 is kinda pushing it when it comes to always having the big threat come out of left field. I think Conquest though popping in was pretty much perfect. As for his role in the story, Mark doesn't think his life could get any worse, then here comes Conquest to remind him that yes it can. Dog walking Mark across 2 continents, Conquest is the embodiment of the unstoppable evil villain. That there is no chance of talking him down, restraining him is just near impossible. He's just here to inflict misery and hurt others, and enjoying every second of it. Which forces Mark to recognize that he has to kill this guy, that he barely beat him once, that letting him live is just too grave a risk for everyone that he loves. Conquest is a monster, but man is he fun. I honestly think the greatest tragedy to his character isn't that like, oh my god, he's so alone, he turned himself into basically a weapon, he only just finds sadistic joy because that's all he has. No, the real tragedy is that he has never met Battle Beast. These two would have been the other's wet dream, and I mourn it for the both of them. But the thing that I like the most about Conquest is that yeah, he is vile, he is terrible, but he's also having a ball the entire time he's fighting Mark. Viewing this as just an opportunity to have fun and get some good exercise in. That dissonance between him being friendly and encouraging versus acts of mass violence. I love it so much as Invincible stresses so much how everyone's life has value. Being Conquest's worldview just its antithesis. He views everyone as a toy, a chance for him to have fun, not caring about the damage or harm he inflicts along the way. When he starts to rip Oliver in half, there's just a hint of glee to his voice in describing the process, unconcerned with the pain he's inflicting on another living being, making him the perfect foil for Mark, who has spent all season feeling guilty about what he's done, or at least he thought he did. And I think this comes home in his final speech/confession, where for a brief moment we see into Conquest's soul, seeing how empty and alone he is. And in most other instances, this would elicit sympathy, that oh no, he has no friends, he's isolated even from other Viltrumites, there's a reason he's a no, none of that. Here though, it just emphasizes just the fact that this man would rather keep killing, keep harming others than change. That he may feel alone, but all that is still his choice, and the weird lover confession thing he has going on with Mark, truly disturbing and makes him just a great villain, and this is a great fight. This fight was clearly prioritized as it is the season's climax, and I don't think Invincible has ever had great fight choreography, especially when it comes to the Viltrumites, who will punch each other with the strength that is supposed to break skyscrapers, only for it to come off as just another hit, which makes this fight so good, as it really shows off just how powerful Mark and Conquest really are, and all the collateral damage that comes along with it. As when it came down to it, Mark was the only one with a chance to beat this man, and then Eve showed up. And that's rough because you know exactly what was about to happen. I'm thankful at the very least she had a decent showing, and I had a huge sigh of relief when she finally used her powers that weren't just her Green Lantern constructs. Eve is the most powerful human on the planet. Her skill set is insane. So her manipulating matter to do something marginally cool and clever like increasing the density of the air, that was much needed. But we then had to go back to her just throwing the pink shit at him, which, girl, that ain't doing anything to him. Like, I was waiting for her to turn his mechanical arm into water or something insane like converting the oxygen around him into poisonous gas. Eve is basically a god, and she needs to abuse that fact more. But then she gets got, Mark stops caring about his own body and is able to go limb for limb, and I like how they explain that, oh, this isn't Mark getting like a sudden power-up. He's not stronger because he's angry. This is him just not caring about his body. He's overexerting himself, putting more pressure than his own bones can take, and he just happens to go limb for limb with Conquest till Eve gives him the chance to use his head. That was a bloody good finish. But then we have to keep going for another 10 minutes, as yeah, we have the funeral and the tease for other events in season 4. With the final stinger being Mark saying that from now on, when someone threatens his family, he's gonna kill him. Which sounds intense, but honestly, my action to this was
okay.
Fully copying that I didn't give his arc and his struggle with guilt enough credit in my last video, but I personally just nod along with this whole final speech. As personal taste, I think the one thing of Invincible's writing that I don't fully gel with is that it does such a good job at telegraphing where the story or arc will go that in some cases it feels like the show is dragging its feet rather than building anticipation. Waiting for Mark to kill felt like waiting for the Amber breakup. The writing in both cases is good, but all the groundwork has already been mostly done, and I'm just like, please pull the trigger already. The dude has been microdosing murder all season. Yeah, it would be insane to have this fight in episode 6 or 7, so I get why this one had to wait till the end, as this is a season finale. But he does kill people now, and people are gonna regret it. Mark most of all. He's an anti-hero now. We'll probably see him lower his standards like, okay, who can and can't I kill, till he offs someone that he truly wishes he hadn't. As yeah, Mark in his blue suit was inspired by the black suit arc in Spider-Man, so I'm figuring just like in that story, Mark's gonna return to his old heroic self at some point, though will probably remain willing to do some morally dubious things, like work with Cecil. Overall, I think this was a good season of Invincible. I'd put it above season 2, but season 1, still the best for me. Congrats to Glenn for the get back. This finale was fucking phenomenal. It definitely feels like we're building to like a giant status quo shift pretty soon, so I'm very curious to see how they'll pull that off, and if you spoil anything in the comments, I will remove them. Now let me know what you all thought down below. What was your favorite episode of the season, and how many days do you think it'll take till Conquest breaks out of the prison? Personally, I give him a week. Also remember to check out my sponsor Invincible, guarding the globe, and to like, share, and subscribe.